Prepare to have your mind blown. Alright everybody, if there's ever a motion picture that was going to hit you with a little bit of shock and awe, it's this one. We're going all the way back to 1981 to take a look at a little sci-fi piece of history, Scanners. But before we go any further, before we dig into this gem anymore, once and again, and as always, to the trailer.
I would like to scan all of you in this room, one at a time. I must remind you that the scanning experience is usually a painful one, sometimes resulting in nosebleeds, earaches, stomach cramps, nausea, sometimes other symptoms of a similar nature. At this point, I'd like to call for volunteers. Fine. Just, sit right here, please. I'd like you to think of something specific.
Do I have to close my eyes?
It doesn't matter.
All right, yes, I have something.
The Mind Force. Scanners. Their thoughts can kill.
Okay everybody, this motion picture was directed by David Cronenberg. We all the name, so let's do the run. We're talking about he did The Fly. He did The Brood, and Dead Ringers, and Videodrome, for God's sakes, and The Dead Zone, and Naked Lunch, and Crash, and Existenz, and Fast Company, and Rabid, and A History of Violence. So, his career is long. We all know the deal. We'll talk more about it later. Let's keep going. Okay, playing Kim, the ever so hot Jennifer O'Neill. Let's do this. Of course, she was in a movie with Chuck Norris called A Force of One. That is just legendary and we love. And she's also in Steel, which is a little flick with Lee Majors you gotta check out. And she was in Glass Houses, and Summer of 42, and Cloud Dancer, and The Psychic, and on a lot of TV. You know, Bare Essence, and Cover Up, and A&D, and Nash Bridges. And she was in a whole bunch of fucking TV movies back in the day. I can't remember their names. It is what it is. It was what it was. But we all remember, or at least we should. Playing Cameron, Stephen Lack. Not much of a career, to be honest, but we'll dig in anyway. Anyway, he was in motion pictures like Head On, and The Rubber Gun, and he popped up a little in Dead Ringers, and Perfect Strangers, and all the Vermeers in New York. But really, he's had a great career outside of motion pictures. He went on to be like a world-renowned like painter, doing big exhibitions, and all kind of, is that the right word, exhibitions? Who gives a shit? Anyway, went on a great career as an artist, as a painter, did what he did. His movie career is kind of a forgotten thing in that world, so is what it was. God bless him. Playing Dr. Paul Ruth. Patrick McGoohan. Let's do this. We're talking about he's been in stuff like Ice Station Zebra and Silver Streak and Escape from Alcatraz, and Braveheart, and The Phantom, and on a whole bunch of TV shows, especially over in Britain, really. We're talking about Secret Agent, and The Prisoner, and Danger Man, and The Vise, and Rafferty, and Columbo, and Aggie, and Terminus. So, hey man, you've seen his face. You know, especially if you're my age, you've seen his face. Playing Brandon Keller, Lawrence Dane. Pretty big career, I might say, especially on television. We're talking about he has been in stuff like Millennium and Of Unknown Origin. But like I said, he's really a TV guy. We're talking Street Legal and The Equalizer and Airwolf and Mission Impossible. And way back in the day even, shit like Mannix and Mod Squad and Bonanza and Encounter and The Saint. And even popped up in that, when that wasn't too long ago, La Femme Nikita. So, big career, long career, a lot of TV work. Okay, playing Daryl Revok, the man who really made this motion picture, but I'll get into that shit later on. Michael Ironside. Let's do this. We're talking about he has been in gems like Top Gun, and Falcon and the Snowman, and Total Recall, and Highlander 2, and Terminator Salvation, and Starship Troopers, and Free Willy, and he was on TV in a lot of shit from, like V, and Hill Street Blues, and Sequest 2032, and ER, and The Last Chapter, and he even popped up in a motion picture that you guys have to see. Not saying it's good, and I'll review it someday, but Space Hunter. Adventures in the Forbidden Zone, where he played Overdog. Just fucking ridiculous, but it is what it is. Let's keep going. And I might as well throw out a little bit of love to Robert Silverman, who played Benjamin. Not a big career, but he popped up in several Cronenberg flicks and some other little shit. You know what I mean? We're talking about he was in motion pictures like Waterworld and Jason X and The Brood and Eggs Extends and Naked Lunch and Prom Night. And, there was a couple other Cronenberg flicks he popped up. But that was like his thing. He was a Cronenberg guy, and really that and some other low-budget shit was his whole forte. Okay, everybody, we're going to do this in 90 seconds or less. Keep it short, keep it fast, keep it entertaining, keep it moving so we can get to where we'd all much rather be. The summation. And by the way, I know the trailer didn't tell you jack shit about what's going on in this motion picture, so I'm going to try to fill you in on the plot a bit, but not give you too much so you can go out and discover it on your own. Anyway, you got this guy, kind of looks like a transient, kind of looks like a homeless bum or something. Don't know what's going on, but he's wandering through the mall. And he's eating people's garbage left on their trays, picking food right off of their tables as they're eating. Kind of a strange situation. So this one woman notices him. She kind of talks to her friend saying, look at this bum, he's disgusting, it is what it is. And as he stares at her, she starts to have a seizure, an attack, and falls on the ground. Well, there's these two guys watching this go down. They happen to be trailing this dude, whose name is Cameron, by the way. They chase him through the mall, they shoot him with a dart gun, they take him back to a lab, where he meets a doctor. And he finds out who he is and what he is. Turns out he's a scanner, and a scanner has the ability to go in and affect the minds and nervous systems of other people. They do have a drawback. Most of them are driven nuts by the fact that they can't keep all the information of the world out of their head, and they can't keep all the voices out of their head, so most of them wind up dysfunctional and a complete mess. Well, this doctor and his group, they're training these scanners to go out and infiltrate and kill this other scanner, this other bad scanner who's trying to recruit scanners to take over the world. So they give Cameron his mission, they send him on out, he meets up with some other people, with Jennifer O'Neill in there, and then they kind of join forces to infiltrate and get out there and destroy Daryl Revok, Michael Ironside, and the bad scanners from taking over the planet. Along the way, they find out some things. They find out that this all started because it was a wonder drug given to some moms to calm their nerves back in the 50s. And all of a sudden, what happens? Their babies came out scanners. There's another company that's got these security interests in... I don't want to give too much. I've probably given away too much already. It's just what it is. That's the plot. That's the story. Can the couple of good scanners stop the group of bad scanners? Is there a traitor between the companies? Is Dr. Ruth, that doctor I told you about, good? Bad? Who is he really? You'll find out. That's all I'm giving you. Let's roll. Okay, everybody, let's get to brass taxes. Does scanners work? Yeah, scanners works. It's one of the all-time great sci-fi horror little gem movies of the 1980s. We'll get into why more in a second, but let's just do the norm. The directing, it's solid, it's good. Cronenberg always does a good job. I wouldn't say he's masterful. Not every shot looks beautiful. But his directing style is his directing style. It's kind of pedestrian, but it works for his motion pictures. The writing in this is fairly solid. There's nothing great. There's nothing over the top. But it's solid. It doesn't suck. And it gets the point across, moves the motion picture, is what it needs to be. The acting. Woo! That's where we have some things to talk about. There's some incredible highs and some very bad lows. But it is what it is. I'll touch base on all those in just a few seconds, and you'll get what I mean. Okay, everybody, let's get back on track. Scanners works, and here's why. First off, you got a really interesting, cool little plot. It's kind of neat, the whole thing about these little kids that grow up because of a antidepressant drug given to their parents to have all these super abilities, and then you got these factions vying for power and trying to use them. There's all kinds of shit going on. So it's a cool little plot, a scientific little plot. It's really neatly done. I mean, they don't explain everything to the nth degree, but it's good enough for this kind of motion picture, and you're going to enjoy it just for that. Another thing that made Scanners so groundbreaking for its time was literally, it was kind of a gore fest. I remember seeing this when I was like 11, 12 years old, and I'm like, what the hell did I just watch? I mean, the battle between Revok and between Cameron was gruesome and horrific, and like, holy shit, this is just like insanity, especially for that period of time. It was one of those things where you're like, I can't believe they put that shit on celluloid. And this motion picture hits you with that fairly early, which basically you watched in the friggin' trailer. When that happened at that time, that motion picture became famous just for that scene. People went and seen this motion picture just for that scene. People will go out and say, did you see that fucking movie where the guy's head exploded? I mean, exploded? And everybody's like, no, get the fuck out. And everybody would go to the theaters just to see that scene. It was so shocking, so crazy, so over the top, that it became legendary just for that. With the silver ball, it's a phantasm. The head explosion scene is two Scanners. It's just the way it is. Not like all Cronenberg flicks, it has that Cronenberg vibe. You know how Cronenberg is. A lot of his stuff just makes you feel icky. You know how it is? Cronenberg's movies always leave you with that feeling of what is going on, what am I watching, and how fast do I get to go to the shower and wash this shit off me after I get done seeing it. That's the effect most of his movies always had on me. They weren't what I would say scary. They weren't what I would say terrifying. They were just weird, strangely presented, oddly paced, and they would leave you with a feeling at the end of it going like, oh, ooh, that's weird and uncomfortable and gross and and nobody did that more effectively than Cronenberg. Nobody by far. That was his trademark, that was his feeling, that was his vibe. If it was something to make you feel squeamish and disturbed and weirded out, Cronenberg was the man. And of course, saying that, this motion picture delivers that in spades. Between the gore, between the excessive goddamn blood, between all that kind of stuff that's going down in it, the movie just has a weird pace and a weird timing and a weird vibe and a weird framing that you get that vibe as you do with all those other things, and it hits you over the head and it's omnipresent. Now let's get to the kind of elephant in the living room. There is a problem and a savior with this motion picture. And the problem really is that the lead character, Stephen Lack, Cameron, he's just like the most, not to pick on anybody, but I'm just saying, this guy's performance is boring and stale and flat, and I don't know, maybe they wanted him to be that way, maybe they directed him that way, but it just comes across that way, and it just didn't work. It just, I mean, he's one of those guys that he just didn't really emote that much. He was great at and all that kind of stuff and looking zoned out, but it hurt. But the upside was the other rest of the cast. This motion picture really, by and large, gets saved by Michael Ironside. I mean, he is incredible as Daryl Revok. He's spot on as Daryl Revok. He's terrifying as Daryl Revok. And there's a scene in this motion picture when he plays a young Daryl Revok, and on a black and white video screen you're watching. And watch the subtlety of his acting about how he plays him that way, differently than how he plays him later on when he's more demented and more crazed. In the beginning he's troubled, and then later he's evil. And he really plays the characters somewhat differently, and there's a lot of subtlety in his acting. So Michael Ironside sometimes gets thrown into the world of just B-legend fucking hero. But in this motion picture, watch him. He does a lot of good work. And also, Patrick McGoohan and Lawrence Dane and Jennifer O'Neill, they all carry their weight just fine. They play the parts they're supposed to play. They play them effectively. They play them very well. So that offsets the fact that your basic lead character is kind of flat and kind of boring and looks like he's reading his lines as he goes along. Are there any other minuses other than Stephen Lack's performance? Not really. You know what I mean? Everything else carries along well enough and does well enough. Sure, the fact that now scanners can access computers and shit like that with their minds is like a little bit of a stretch, and you're like, how the hell do we get from point A to point B that fast? And there's a few leaps of faith, and there's a few facts that all this stuff is going on, and nobody seems to be questioning the fact that there's these tanker trucks just driving throughout the country to give out this syringe to all these pregnant women. I mean, they're planning basically to take over the world like some James Bond flick. But if you overlook those couple little things, you'll get rolled into the plot. You'll have fun with the story. You'll like the way it's framed. There's a little bit of elements of other motion pictures in here that kind of zip into it. Whether you love, even people standing in a field reminds you something out of Night of the Living Dead. So it's one of those motion pictures that has a lot of little elements in it wrapped up in Cronenberg isms that make it an effective, thrilling, and shocking little motion picture. Okay, everybody, be good. Take care. Stay out of trouble. Help a friend. Always be kind to a stranger. And above all else, no matter what, get out there, have fun, but never, ever take any bullshit from anybody. See you soon.